Welcome, everyone, and I want to say especially welcome to Clifford Chan, who's at his first board meeting with a nameplate behind the general manager's desk. Welcome, Clifford.
Thank you.
This is our Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 regular closed session meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. Due to COVID-19 and in accordance with Alameda County Health Order 2014, issued June 5th and revised on June 18th, and with the Governor's Executive Order N2920, which suspends portions of the Brown Act, this meeting will be conducted completely by teleconference. And in compliance with those orders, a physical location has not been provided for this meeting. And these measures will apply only during the period where state or local public health officials have imposed or recommended social distancing. So, Risha, I want to do the next thing before, after roll call and pledge. The Finance and Administration Committee met this morning and will report under item 24. And all directors, including myself, are participating via teleconference. If you would do roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Director Coleman.
Present.
Director Katz.
Present.
Director Linney.
Here.
Director McIntosh.
Here.
Director Millen.
Present.
Director Patterson.
Present.
President Young.
I am here. Okay, if folks would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. There are no announcements from closed session. I do want to open, this is ordinarily where we do awards and things like that. And with so much going on at our last meeting, and because of the way that we're going to end today's meeting, wanted just to take this moment to recognize June as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex Pride Month. 50 years ago, and I'm going to here's my rainbow pride mask. 50 years ago is when the Stonewall riots happened, or Stonewall uprising happened in New York, led by transgender people, and really ushered in the gay civil rights movement as we know it today. Last week, the Supreme Court validated what we all have known for many years, that you can't discriminate against people because of who they love, although I don't think the opinion said that exactly. I just want to, I think we are about to fly, we were obtaining a rainbow flag to fly over our administration building, and where it will fly every June from here on out, and just want to recognize all our LGBTQI employees and allies, and wish you and your families a wonderful month of June Pride. So, thank you. Next up, we have public comment. If there are members of the public present today that wish to speak on an agenda or a non-agenda, wish to speak on a non-agenda item, I will take your names in alphabetical groupings, and the secretary will record them and let you know when it is your turn to speak. You'll have 3 minutes, and she will let you know also when your time is up. If you are not speaking under public comment but are on the line, please do mute your phone to minimize background noise. And you might also consider following our meeting on the East Bay MUD website where audio streaming is available. Is there anyone on the line for public comment with the last name beginning letter A as in Apple through F as in Frank? Okay, how about letter G as in Gary through L as in Larry?
Yes, Eric Larson, President, AFSCME Local 444, calling in to endorse agenda item number 22.
Okay, so Risha, you got that? That he's so also on item 22, Eric?
Yeah, if I'm
Eric,
yes.
Just to be clear, do you want to speak in this public comment section and on item 22?
No, simply speaking to endorse item 22.
22, okay, all right. Anyone for public comment, else for public comment on letter G through L?
Yes, Gina Jenkins, Manager of Maintenance Support, East Bay MUD. I would also like to make a public comment on item 22.
Okay, for anybody from the public that's making a comment on a particular item, we will ask for those comments when we take up the item. So for item 22 especially, we'll be collecting names again for public comment. Okay? Letters M as in Mary through R as in Robert for public comment for items not on the agenda. Okay, and how about letters S as in Sam through Z as in zebra?
Justin Young, public comment, but it's for agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, okay.
And President Young, we have Joey Smith in the audience that wishes to speak in public comment, Joey? In regular public comment.
Okay, all right. So, Madam Secretary, can you call the 2 speakers for public comment? I think it was 2, maybe just 1.
I think it's just 1. It's just Joey for
Okay.
open public comment.
Good afternoon, President Young.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon, President Young, the rest of the board and staff. Congrats, Clifford, again. I was hoping to catch the pride flag more unfurled. I sent a text to you, but the wind has been unpredictable these days, so the flag is up. It was put up on Friday. A wonderful collaboration of...
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. Facilities and our senior management representative, Eileen White. We got it taken care of. It is just a temporary one for this year. We are investing in a larger one that's going to be closer to the same size and weight as the California flag so that they will fly equally instead of one being covered by the other. But thank you very much for making this happen. The reigning Pride Committee is thrilled, and we appreciate the support of the board.
Happy to do it. Happy to honor that. Okay, so that's our only public comment, unless there's anyone else for public comment on the line. Okay, we will move on to the consent calendar, and I believe we will be pulling item 6 and is it 20?
20.
Um,
Yes.
22.
No, 22 is on the regular calendar.
And 26.
Item 20 was what was changed by the Finance Committee this morning?
Right.
Is that right? Okay. So do I have any other board members who wish to pull other items from consent or make a motion to approve consent calendar items 1 through 5, 7 through 19?
Also
I'll make
move.
the motion, Madam President.
I'll second.
So it was either moved by Coleman and McIntosh or McIntosh, I don't know, and seconded by Doug. Roll call, please.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director Linney,
Aye.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Millen,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. Okay, let's move to item 6. Clifford, do we have a presentation on this item queued up or somebody to speak on it before Justin makes his comments?
We can respond maybe after public comment.
Okay, so you'd like to wait and just respond, have Justin go with his public comment and then respond?
Yes, please.
Okay. Justin?
Yes.
Your turn for public comment, Justin.
Okay. Good afternoon, Board of Directors, General Manager Clifford, fellow East Bay MUD employees and guests listening online. My name is Justin Young, and I'm an electrical engineer and the chair of Contract Out Committee for Local 2019. Since January of 2019, 4 electrical engineer contracts totaling $2.5 million have been brought to the board and approved for electrical engineer work that have always been completed in-house. And those contracts aren't including the other millions of dollars electrical engineers have been included with other engineering disciplines and projects. $2.5 million of approved district money since January of 2019 for electrical engineer work. $2.5 million for which could have been used to recruit and retain electrical engineers. $2.5 million loss of district knowledge. $2.5 million loss of efficiency. $2.5 million loss of district teamwork. $2.5 million contractor experience paid by district. Local 2019 didn't object to this current contract, but we wanted to discuss and bring awareness to this contract. The current electrical design group has been dealt an unfair hand. The staffing is so limited that there aren't enough physical bodies for mentoring and training of our own staff. And that's what this contract is. It's not to complete a project or task. This contract is for additional support to assist in training and mentoring 1 associate electrical engineer and 1 junior electrical engineer to help rebuild electrical engineering expertise. The local fully supports and promotes in-house training and mentoring of district employees. This particular contract will bring back our past Local 2019 brother, Greg Yin, electrical engineer at East Bay MUD for 27 years, whom is barely 1 year into retirement. Electrical engineers easily have had the most vacant openings with difficulties in filling. Director Jimmy has acknowledged the problem and has communicated them to us. Managers and supervisors and the units have worked closely each month for over a year to find ways to recruit electrical engineers. We've done all we really can do within our capabilities to recruit. We just need to determine why electrical engineers aren't coming to East Bay MUD. We need to determine if we're comparable to local agencies. And we look forward to continue working with human resources on the salary survey. In the bad economy, electrical engineers are finally showing interest to East Bay MUD. We need to retain these new hires when the economy turns around. We all know the situation of electrical engineers at the district when the economy was good. We can't afford to lose another electrical engineer to Contra Costa Water. We can't afford to lose another electrical engineer to the Port of Oakland. Thank you for listening. But before I leave, on behalf of 2019, we would like to say a few more words. First, the local wants to say welcome to General Manager Clifford Chan, and we look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Secondly, we wish good luck in retirement to Manager of Employee Relations, Jill Gaskins. The union appreciated all your time working with us and for leading the district with a great team. Thank you for your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Justin. Just to clarify, you're not opposing the item. You wanted to bring forward your comments. that correct?
Yep, the same concerns, correct, but there's no, just public comment and expressing our concerns.
Okay, thank you. Clifford, do you have a response?
If you'd like to hear, we can have the Director of Engineering Construction just give an update to the board on the efforts we've made to recruit electrical engineers.
Thank you.
Good morning, President Young, and good afternoon, President Young, and members of the board. As Justin has mentioned,
that's Jimmy, right?
Yes.
We can't see you, so.
I'm sorry. This is Jimmy Yole.
Okay. Okay.
So I did have a brief discussion with Justin Young this morning and gave him an update on where we are. The recruitments, we do have, we have 4 vacant positions of electrical engineers throughout the district. 2 are in the section that this particular contract relates to. But we are in the process. We believe we have positive signs that we will be able to fill the remaining 4 positions probably in the next couple of months or so. We are at the panel interview stage, and with good numbers of applicants in each of the associate engineer and assistant engineer categories. The other update that I would like to mention, Justin mentioned the salary survey. That survey is near completion by Human Resources, and probably within the next couple of weeks that will be available for everyone to look at. So I acknowledge it has been a difficult challenge recruiting electrical engineers over the past year, but we do believe that we see light at the end of the tunnel on that, and are optimistic that we will have a full staffing and continue to retain those engineers as we go forward.
And hopefully in the future, the ability to mentor and train them once we've brought them on board, we have them around.
That's correct.
All right. Is there any questions for Jimmy?
No, Madam President, this is John. I'll move the item.
I'll second. This is
Okay,
Doug.
moved by Director Coleman, seconded by Director Linney. Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director Linney,
Aye.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Millen,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, item 20, Madam Secretary, or I don't know who wants to discuss the change. I know this was heard in Finance this morning and some amendment was made.
I can share with you what was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting. So during the Finance Committee, for policy 1.14 on the customer assistance policy, there was a recommendation on item number 8 under the program initiatives to include certification by primary care providers and then to add or a medical provider. So the or a medical provider has been added to the policy, and that was a change that was recommended and made.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion from the committee?
I would move the item. I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director Linney,
Aye.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Millen,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. Okay, that takes us to, that passes, takes us to discussion and determination. And there she is, ready to turn it over to Marlene Dumaine for our legislative update. Take it away, Marlene.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Young and board members. I am here off schedule today to bring ACA 5 forward for your consideration.
That's okay. They can still hear each other.
Constitution by the voters in 1996, and it essentially eliminated state and local government affirmative action programs in 3 areas: public employment, public education, and public contracting. Before 209 was enacted, there were affirmative action programs established with the intent of increasing representation of women and racial and ethnic minority groups in these areas of public government. When we looked at this measure with regard to East Bay MUD, we felt that it may further East Bay MUD's own goals to achieve a diverse workforce and also a greater alignment with district values, and we are recommending a support position on this measure today.
I would happily move that. Marguerite, you're on mute. I would happily move it.
Thank you, Director McIntosh. Do I have a second?
Frank Mellon.
Seconded by Director Patterson. I think he beat you to the punch.
That's fine.
Is there any additional discussion on the item? I'm guessing that we're going to have a lot of support for this.
Marguerite,
Lisa?
I just have one question of Marlene. Marlene, so where is it in the process? What's going on with it?
That's a great question. It is moving quickly. It passed out of the Assembly, and it moved over to the Senate, and the Senate has been very careful in not doing any amendments to it because they don't want to have to send it back for concurrence. The idea here is that the Assembly is now on break until July 13th. The deadline to get things on the ballot is the end of June. The Senate is still in. So ACA 5 is right now on the Senate floor. So it's moving quickly enough so that there is time to get it out of the Senate and to the governor for his approval in time to get it on the ballot.
Okay.
And you as a board are acting in time for the position to be voiced both with the governor and with the Senate.
Right.
I did see that the entire UC Board of Regents voted to restore affirmative action. Was that it?
Separate from an action on this measure?
Yeah.
Oh, I was not aware of
The
that.
entire Board of Regents of UC voted just last week. So that's great.
I'd like to add one thing procedurally. Assuming this is signed by the governor and it goes onto the ballot, once it goes onto the ballot, there's an opportunity to bring this back as a ballot measure for a support resolution. And so our intention would be to do that for you.
All
Right, and they'll have to move swiftly on that as well, I would assume, in order to, swiftly or not. No, we don't have to move swiftly. We're not going to be on the ballot argument or anything like that.
Right.
Okay. Does somebody else want to? Andy?
Yeah, I'd like to share. I happened to have been in a meeting with Assemblymember Weber, the author of the bill on non-district business, and she shared with us that her view was that the campaign to pass Proposition 209 was marketed, focused on education aspects of it to convince the voters to approve the measure, but the campaign was largely funded, in her view, by contractors. And I think we feel the impact at the district, in our inability to have an adequate result for our contract equity program. That's really why it's in the district's interests to have this first and foremost, in addition to the educational pipeline. Speaking personally, I was in the class that was first admitted under Proposition 209 taking effect, and it had a profound effect on the quality of education and the diversity of our classrooms. So I'm glad that we will be on record supporting this so that we can have a more effective contract equity program and better educational pipeline in the state.
And Andy, you were the first to raise this for us, so I want to thank you for that as well.
Thanks, and I appreciate the staff for bringing it to us so quickly.
Yeah, thank you for raising it, and thank you, Marlene. And
Absolutely.
for getting on it so that we didn't miss the boat before the legislature finished acting on it. Okay, but we need to vote. So, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director Lenny,
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Millen,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Absolutely, yes. So that's unanimous. Now we move on to agenda item 22.
President
Oh, no,
Young?
I'm sorry, you have some other things. Sorry, Marlene.
Yeah, I had an update for you on the state budget and federal. I'll move quickly, I promise.
Okay.
So the state budget, this is such a wild year. Normally we have our June state budget, and then we have sort of a budget junior happening in August. And trailer bills start getting populated right after the May revise, so we have a little time to look at them. This year what happened is the governor released his May revise on May 14th, and the legislature was moving towards their budget, and their deadline is June 15th. And the big three, meaning the pro tem, the speaker, and the governor, were not able to reach agreement by June 15th. So what the legislature did was they passed a placeholder budget last week. And if anyone's interested, that bill number is SB 74. And the recognition was this will be a framework, but we still have work to do to come to agreement with the governor. And so that agreement was reached yesterday. And we now have 2 additional budget bills in print. Those are SB 121 and SB 88, and 17 budget trailer bills in print. And the plan is to vote probably this Friday. So the Assembly will have to come back from its break to vote. They'll get everything voted, and then this can get finalized by the end of the month. And then we will also see a pretty hefty budget session in August, because we still don't know as a state what those revenues are going to be because of that tax deadline moving to July. So the final approach was a compromise. The main area of disagreement was on cuts. What the governor was proposing was about $14 billion in cuts, and he was relying largely on additional federal money coming through in relief packages. And his approach was, let's do these cuts now, and then we will pull them back if that relief money materializes. And his cuts went across basically all sectors. And the legislature did not like that approach, so they've reduced the spending reductions, and now it's $12 billion. They're not doing the broad-based cuts that were previously planned, so they're not going to be the deep cuts to the social services and healthcare in particular. And only those cuts that are reliant on that federal relief money would take place immediately. There's a lot to these bills. We haven't had a chance to go through them in detail. They just came into print late last night. So once there's a signed budget, we'll come back to you with a little bit more detail on all of this. And there are some areas of concern that we've been looking at, particularly as a utility. One is the safe drinking water access for disadvantaged communities, and the other is the youth justice realignment, and whether or not they're going to close Pine Grove, and also whether or not they're going to close any of the adult conservation camps. And right now it's unclear what's happening with both of those items, And if we don't have clarity with this budget, it may be something that we won't know until August. So we'll keep you posted. Can I move on to?
Yeah, just on Pine Grove, and then I'll call him John. So in the meantime, does that mean Pine Grove's open still?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
What the original proposal on the juvenile justice is that they would reduce population through attrition and move towards closure. And I don't know if they were making a distinction between the conservation camp and then there are 3 facilities that are not conservation camps, or if they were looking at all 4 of those the same way and dealing with the population.
Okay. Thank you.
John?
John?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I'll get you after John, Bill.
Marlene, has there been any further, first of all, to assume that the feds are going to step up is probably a poor assumption. So based on that, has there been any discussion of where money, as I've asked before, where money may come from in order, if they're not cutting the budget as much as they were looking at doing under the governor's proposal? You have some $2 billion extra that they're going to need to balance out. Have they looked? Has there been any discussion where that may come from to fill the coffers?
Well, there were a couple of things that changed. One is that they reached a deal with the state employees, and that deal, the last number I had, hang on a second, it's written down.
$2.8 billion.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, just shy of $3 billion, and that's on the furloughing. And the other thing is that they upped their revenue estimation. So they feel like what they're seeing today versus what they were seeing a few weeks ago, that the revenues are coming up. So they're assuming that is going to be the case.
But they're also, the governor said today that if the COVID-19 virus continues to go at the pace it's going, they're going to start doing shutdowns again.
Yeah, they could, and that this also largely informs what that August budget conversation is going to look like. And one thing that the governor and the legislature have been very clear about is that this budget is really a multi-year solution, because we don't know what the future looks like, but they don't expect a switch to flip and then everything's going to be rosy again. So these budget conversations are going to be fairly in-depth for the foreseeable future.
Okay. And it should be noted the reason they approved the budget last week is so they could get paid.
Marlene,
It's
I
the
had
law
just
too, John. But
one quick question. I noted yesterday, I listened to the governor, he spoke, and in his message, he brought to light that he's planning to restore $54 million for schools, for education. So, some of the poor school districts like Oakland were on the block for cuts, non-sustainable cuts. Did you hear anything on that at all?
I heard generally on the schools that they were essentially making K through 12 whole. And by whole, it was basically no increase in spending, but trying to maintain their levels at prior year spending. Mm-hmm. But they are doing pretty deep cuts for the Cal State and the UC system.
Yeah, okay. That's what I wanted to hear. Thanks.
Sure. Would you like to hear about the HEROES Act real quickly?
sure.
Okay, the HEROES Act is the shorthand for the COVID relief number 4. And this is the package where the House passed a $3 trillion measure, sent it over to the Senate, and it was DOA on the Senate side. The Senate was saying, we don't want to see any more than $1 trillion. And the good news is that the conversations are still pretty active on another relief package. And also the White House has, in recent days, weeks, become more receptive to a package. So the conversations are continuing. We're still looking at something like a vote maybe in July on this. And I say that asking you to hear it with a grain of salt, because every time we hear a vote date, it changes. We, as a utility, have asked for relief in 4 areas. 3 of those 4 areas are still part of the conversation, so that's optimistic. One is ratepayer assistance. The other is the payroll tax credit extension to include local government to compensate for the extended leave under the CARES Act. And the third is the essential frontline worker relief. We don't have detail on any of those, but we do know those are still being discussed. So that is very good news. And again, maybe a vote sometime in July. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we're going to see a little bit more information on precisely what they're talking about for a final package.
And Marlene, are you hearing anything about infrastructure stimulus being included in this package as well?
I'm hearing that would be separate. What the House did was they put their approach into a bill, which is H.R. 2, and they haven't voted on it yet, but they'll probably vote on that in early July as well. And that approach is largely follows that moving forward framework that the House Dems released in January. The good news is it does include water and wastewater infrastructure. It also includes workforce development for water and wastewater. It recognizes fisheries. And it doesn't have any objectionable policy language that would harm the moke fishery, which is one of the things we're really, really concerned about, particularly in a stimulus bill. What will likely happen, we would expect this to pass on a partisan basis in the House. Then it will go over to the Senate and rest for some time while they try to figure out what the compromise approach is going to be. If it doesn't happen this year, it provides a nice starting place for next year, particularly if there are any changes in the Senate or with the administration.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions for Marlene?
Okay.
Thank you for making a special off-calendar appearance.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. We now move on to agenda item 22, which is the consideration of our resolution on racial justice. And I don't know, Clifford, who is presenting? Are you presenting this, or who's?
Laura Costa, the manager of human resources, can walk you through, the board through.
And then I'm assuming, can we stop for a second before we get the presentation and just understand how many people we have for public comment on this item? I know there's some that queued up earlier. If there are members of the public for this item, I'm going to call for last names and letter groupings and ask you to identify yourself for the item. The secretary will record your name and then cue you for your starting time after we have a presentation from Laura Acosta. So is there anyone with the last name beginning letters A through F that would like to comment on this item? Okay, if your last name begins with the letter G through L, Gary through Larry.
Gina Jenkins, Manager of Maintenance Support, East Bay MUD.
Okay. Anyone else in that G through L category? Now, Eric, you identified yourself already. Okay, how about M as in Mary through S as in Sam?
Didn't Joey Smith?
I mean R. Usually I do M through R. Okay, and then S as in Sam through Z as in zebra. See, I'm doing it not off notes right now.
So Joey's in the audience. She also wants to speak on item number 22.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak on the item? Please identify yourself.
Didn't Joey Smith identify earlier?
Yes, just mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Laura, if you want to proceed with the item.
Good afternoon, President Young, members of the board, General Manager Chan. I'm Laura Acosta, the Human Resources Manager. Before you is a resolution for your consideration today in following the discussion on June 9th at the June 9th board meeting where we started to discuss guiding principles for the district in response to address individual and systematic racism and to establish an ad hoc, the board established an ad hoc committee at that meeting and directed the committee to get together and start to discuss what these principles would be for the district and some action items. So that ad hoc committee did meet and had a lengthy discussion and had the draft resolution before you is a culmination of those discussions for your consideration today.
Lisa, would you like to add anything as, or Frank, as members that participated in the ad hoc committee?
It was, this is Lisa, it was wonderful to see. I don't think I've ever seen that level of participation and coordination and interest within the district. It was a great cross of infinity groups, labor. It was really wonderful and heartwarming to see. So I preface it with that.
Frank?
One of the things that impressed me is that in all the years that the district has been in existence and all the years that I've been involved, there has never been such a group put together. Staff, union, board members. I think it's extraordinary. And I think it's actually in a way a tribute to Alex as he was leading to the value system he was trying to push forward. And this is a good way of saying we are indeed committed to this. And for me, I found it to be both exhilarating and sobering. And I'm glad that I participated in it, and I thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to be part of the ad hoc committee.
Absolutely. Thanks, Frank. I mean, I want to actually do a hat tip to Derry Moten, especially, but also Saji Pierce and Dorian for the work that they did to draft the initial resolution. And again, especially to Derry for helping us understand and a number of other people that participated in the meeting, but he wrote a memo after drafting the first couple rounds of the resolution that I think really crystallized for us the need to make this a time to listen and act and to be very conscious and thoughtful and deliberate about the actions that we take. And I think it framed the discussion around the resolution, which was robust. We made a lot of changes, but it was a very cooperative and collaborative and horizontal process of dialogue among the participants. And I think, I hope that we pass this today, and I hope that my hope is that it is the beginning of a difficult and ultimately rewarding process to move East Bay MUD into a new and renewed culture of acceptance and equity, both in our internal and our external facing work together.
Now the hard work begins.
Right. As Lisa said, resolution's one thing. We're just getting started now. Yeah, Doug?
How many people were on the task force?
I think it was 8 or 9. probably?
Oh, I thought it was closer to a
I
dozen.
thought it was 12.
Or 12, okay.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And we did it as a Teams meeting, and I was concerned that everybody's voices wouldn't be able to be heard. But I think that Derry did an excellent job of facilitating the conversation, so much so that he actually apologized for wanting to state an opinion about something, which we told him he had every right to, but he really helped move the conversation along.
Doug, all the unions participated. For the first time, 39 was a participant in something like this, and I was gratified to see that. And by the way, Saji's quiet, soft hand in the background was clearly evident.
Yes, very much so.
Saji was wonderful, yes.
Yeah.
I just want to applaud the entire committee. I mean, this was only at our meeting discussed last meeting, and the fact that it was turned around so quickly with consensus shows the importance and the values of the district. And I applaud everybody who was part of the process. So thank you.
Anyone else? We need a motion.
I'll make a motion, but I want to speak.
Oh, we have to do public comment too. Go ahead, Bill.
I think the essence of what I'm saying is that I was so happy to see this resolution come forward and the participation in developing it. And it's something that most of you know I come out of a civil rights background. And back then, when the major changes happened, it was just black and white. And now it's more all-inclusive, as it should have been from day one. We've had to do amendments and add-ons and everything else to get it as far as we got it. But I'm very happy with what we've done. And it gives us an opportunity as board members to have more scrutiny when we're looking at issues or concerns so that we can make a better face and body for East Bay Mud. Thank you. I would also move the item at the appropriate time.
Okay, I think, I know we have public comments, so we can make the motion in the second and then we'll hear public comment before we vote.
Why?
Bill has made the motion.
May I second it, please?
Go ahead, Frank.
Sure, Frank.
Thank you.
Seconded by Frank Mellon. Public comment?
Okay, in alphabetical order, Gina Jenkins.
Okay, good afternoon, board members and Clifford Chan. Congratulations, Clifford. I would just like the opportunity. I certainly, as everyone else has stated, appreciate the district's effort. I've been employed at the district for 13 years, and I am an African-American female. And I think the resolution is an outstanding effort to move forward. I just want to take this opportunity, however, to speak on two of the stated principles and provide some information as the manager of meter reading and previously field services. Particularly the first is resolution principle number 6, where it references establishing protocols for following up and responding to racism by customers toward district employees, particularly those interfacing with customers in their neighborhoods and at all district facilities. I just want to share it's more than racism. It's physical confrontations that our district staff has been subjected to. I will quickly say there was an instance with a temporary meter reader where a consumer physically assaulted the meter reader who was doing his job with the district-provided handheld device. The customer attacked the meter reader, removed the handheld from his hand, and accused him of casing his home. He contacted the police officers who responded and recognized that it was not, in fact, the district employee at fault. Unfortunately, though, however, when the district employee wanted to further pursue the matter and was asking the district to support him in pursuit of a civil matter or any other avenue for him to follow up with the consumer. There was a lack of support on the part of the district. He was basically informed it was a private civil matter, and the district provided no support, whether it be legally or emotionally or any other type of support. There was also recently, in the past year, African-American field service rep who was pushed by a consumer, and disparaging comments were made in reference to her nationality. And again, there was a sense of lack of support on the part of the district. And I say lack of support because as an African-American myself, I understand the hurt and the concerns from the district employees who felt that there was a lack of empathy. Is that my buzzer for time?
Yeah, but go finish your thought, please.
Okay. So I have felt in my 13 years that there has been a lack of support when particularly African-American field staff, meter readers, field service reps have complained about the way they have been treated by customers. There have been situations where countless customers have called to complain about field services or meter reading staff particularly, stating that our staff has been threatening and aggressive, using particularly hurtful buzzwords in an attempt to lessen their own actions toward field staff simply because they thought they could. I think the resolution, the principles are certainly a step in the right direction. However, I would like to just suggest that the district hear firsthand from field staff, African American in particular, who have to endure on a day-to-day basis treatment from our customers who simply think they should not be there. And focus groups are great. Meetings are great. However, I think in this instance, we should include those people who are most impacted and demonstrate that not only on paper, but in day-to-day, that we support our staff and are empathetic to their situation. I will just say briefly, there was also a situation as it pertains to number 8 in partnering with law enforcement. I had a meter reader who was in Danville, and this was some years ago. I can't recall the year. He was made to sit on the sidewalk while the police officer verified his identity in spite of him having a district badge and district uniform. He was made to sit on the sidewalk to verify his identity. So when we talk about partnering with law enforcement, there should also be some conversation about how we protect our staff and how we respond when staff is treated this way. And thank you for your time, and sorry that I went over this.
Thank you so much for showing us the hard work that we have ahead of us. Those were some, that was real. And we're going to be getting real with this, and that is a commitment I will make, and all of us, I think, are making today by through this resolution, and recognizing that it's, what you suggested in terms of listening and hearing the experiences and supporting our staff is exactly where we want this to go. So thank you.
Okay, next up would be Eric Larson.
Thank you, Risha. Thank you, President Young, board members. Just wanted to say briefly that the AFSCME Local 444 Anti-Racist Labor Committee endorses the board resolution before you today. And upon adoption of the board resolution, will bring that resolution to our executive board and to our members for further endorsement. We're in the process of developing an anti-racist labor caucus and look forward to participating in the work to sustain actions outlined in this resolution. Thank you, and we encourage adoption today.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric.
Next up, Joey Smith, who's in the audience.
Thank you, President Young, board, staff. As quite likely the third most senior person in the room when it comes down to time served at this company, actually, Director Coleman beats us all, but hey, this is one of the most courageous first steps I have seen this company do in my 28 years here. Gina Jenkins, I feel your pain because while I was out there, that was the type of stuff that happened to me. And it's still happening today. I'm so glad to have been a part of the committee that has made this first step possible. I'm also a member of one of the affinity groups that attempted to get a statement out, and we realized this was happening, so okay, we held off. And as president of 2019, we also will endorse the resolution once it is voted yes. I also want to say that, again, right now what we're doing is symbolism. We have to make absolute certain that there is substance behind it. It sounds as if everyone who's been involved is very much aware that we must make sure that the good words that have been put on the paper turns into good works that serves our staff and the communities that we serve equally well. Because when it all comes down to it, we're in it all together. It's not just about a pandemic and COVID. We all are in this together. And I look very much forward to having the fruit of this labor serve us well.
Thank you, Joey. Well said. Are there any other speakers, Risha?
Any other speakers for public comment on the line?
Okay, any additional comments from the board before we vote? Doug?
My question was just, what is the next steps? How do we turn good words into good works? It seems like there's a lot of ground that's covered in here, and the next step would be to turn this into some sort of work plan or set of next steps. Is there thoughts on how that would be and what that timing when we might be able to see what that is?
Laura or Clifford want to speak to that?
I would recommend if the ad hoc committee wants to still work on this together, we can start working on a plan together. Otherwise, we can put a committee together with staff to start working on it.
Yeah, I think the resolution calls for the ad hoc committee to continue the work and start the action plan. Clifford, want to add anything?
Yeah, no, the ad hoc committee will continue to meet, and we will be reporting out to the Legislative Human Resources Committee on the progress as we move forward.
Andy?
Thank you. Yeah, I support continued work by the ad hoc committee. to scope further work for the staff and for the board as a whole and for committees of the board to engage on things that are in specific jurisdictional areas. Speaking as one of the members that's part of the liaison committee for the Parks District, I think I would like for our district liaison staff to request that the oversight of police be on the agenda for our next liaison committee so that their staff are prepared to present to us and discuss the matter with us. As an example, I am interested in hearing from the ad hoc committee at a later date, perhaps after work by the Ledge HR committee, about what can we better do to support staff who encounter harassment in the field. A simple call to EAP, as I know it right now, is probably not going to do it. Maybe we need to be thinking about cultural competency of our EAP provider or another vendor in addition to our current vendor. I don't know the answer to that, but I do hear the comment that acknowledges a very real and serious need for that specific kind of support. And I'd like to understand what our options are for ensuring that exists. Those are my comments, and I want to thank all the board members and staff that contributed to the resolution in front of us today.
Any other comments by the board?
Marguerite,
Yes, Lisa.
I guess this is as following up with Laura. So I'm assuming we, the ad hoc committee, will schedule our next meeting and start working on an action plan, understanding that this will take time and patience if we want to get it right. But I look forward to the next meeting so we can get started with that action plan. It is so overdue. I'm excited. A little unbelieving still, but I'm ready to do it. So I hope, Laura, Clifford, that you guys will schedule another ad hoc committee meeting so we can get started on an action plan to make this a real thing.
We'll move forward and schedule a series of ad hoc meetings.
Thank you, Clifford. Okay, let's vote this thing. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Okay. Director Linney?
Yes.
Director McIntosh?
Yes.
Director Mellon? Director Patterson?
Yes.
President Young?
Yes. Okay. My screen went dark. Thank you, everyone. Figure out where are we at? Yeah.
Item 23.
Yes, Frank.
This may be a target for the ad hoc committee, or it may be maybe staff in the unions. But as I look over a spot where we can immediately make a change for the positive, I look at the Washington's birthday, which is really President's Day, which celebrates 12 presidents that were slaveholders. And it seems to me that the district could make a very positive move by changing that holiday to Juneteenth. And we could do that well before the contract expires. And not only send a message, but actually emphasize our commitment to what we've just passed. So I would certainly, we did Cesar Chavez without having to have bargaining. Why do we have to have bargaining to make this kind of a correction? And that's a thought I give as we go forward in this process.
Okay, all other ideas, welcome.
I just think, Frank, on that idea, we need to be a little cognizant since all the other agencies also have President's Day as a holiday, and that may cause some disruption from, I don't know, from a business perspective. That's
Look, we're not
that's the thought.
discussing it. We're not discussing
That's
it
right, can't
now.
discuss.
We're,
I just
as
tossed it
Frank
out as a
appropriately
thought.
said, put it into
Hand
the
grenade.
hopper. I actually thought you were going to say something about an instruction from our general manager to all staff and supervisors that any incidents reported in the field get immediately acted on and will be supported by the district in helping employees seek redress for those. So that'd be one I'd throw out there.
Good.
Those days off are nice. Days of commemoration are nice. Okay. Let's move on to item 23, which is the general manager's report. Our first Clifford Chan general manager's report.
Thank you. There's only going to be one first for me for this particular day. So we have a few items. The first, we want to give you an update on our COVID-19 response and some of the changes that we've made in response to Alameda County's updated shelter-in-place order. David Briggs, the acting director of operations and maintenance, will make the presentation.
Good afternoon, President Young. Good afternoon, members of the board. And
welcome to your new status, Dave.
Thank you.
I think we lost you. We can't hear you.
There we go.
Janetta is kindly queuing everything up for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janetta. Okay, good afternoon again. And similar to previous reports, we'll cover a variety of aspects that the pandemic is affecting the district. Starting first with the impact to the customers and the number of accounts in need of restoration is now down to 10. These numbers are indicative of last week. I talked to Andrew a couple hours ago, and he told me that number is now down to 8. So a remarkable effort to get that number down as low as possible. Payment plans and extensions have been granted.
We need to advance. The slides aren't advancing, Dave. Or Janetta. I'm not sure who the right person is.
Stand by. We'll...
Just so folks know, I was on a Orinda City Council meeting last week, and they have the same technical problems, so we're not alone.
Can you see that now?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're on slide 2, and let's see. So just to get back on track here. So service restorations down to 10, payment plans extensions granted to about 5,400 accounts as of last week. Late fees waived to approximately 1,200 accounts, and the 48-hour notices have been withheld for well over 26,000 accounts. Payment penalties have been assessed and collected against well over 68,000 accounts for an amount of about 450,000 since mid-March, and we have 7,600 accounts with unsubmitted payments. This represents about 2% of our accounts. Just for context, normally we have about 3,000 on a running average of accounts that are in this category. The revenue associated with those accounts is about $6 million. And so these numbers are about a week old, and again, in my conversation with Andrew this morning, he told me that these numbers for this particular category are actually going down over the last week, and that may be indication of the economy improving, or it may perhaps be indicative of a tremendous amount of outreach that Andrew's staff and Kelly Zito's staff have made with reaching these account holders and encouraging them to make some type of payment, or all the reasons above. But for whatever reason, this is actually one of our metrics that is actually heading in the right direction as of the last week or so. So that's good news. The CAF applications are numbering 7,630 as of last week. and that represents a 10% growth since early 2020. Water production has, by and large, been constant throughout the pandemic, before and during. And you've seen these charts many times throughout the year during the water supply presentations and throughout the spring. And what we're looking at here is a 5-month snapshot of our production. The red line is this year, the blue line is last year. And you can see, by and large, they are similar. The biggest differences are associated with weather. In February, this February in 2020, we had one of the driest Februaries on record. That increased water production. And the inverse of that happened in May, late May, when in May of 2019, we had one of the wettest Mays on record, which drove production down. We did not see that this year, which is why the red line sort of kept going up as the warmer temperatures came into the region. Overall, our water production is about 2% higher than last year. So at a macroscopic scale, the pandemic does not appear to be affecting water production, but we do know with some preliminary look at our customer data that we are obviously seeing a shift out of commercial and industrial and into the residential category, but the net effect is roughly flat. As the board is aware, the district has received a great number of materials of protective equipment from state and federal sources. And about a month ago, the district acted as a regional distributor for masks that were supplied by the EPA. We were able to do that because of our relationships throughout the state and our reputation as a leader in emergency response, as well as a well-run and managed warehouse. So we were able to be a regional distributor for masks for other water and wastewater providers in the Bay Area. We are proud to do that. In addition, we have received thousands of other supplies, masks, sanitizer, dispensing pumps, and we have an order out right now outstanding for face shields and thermometers. We are well stocked for the second wave or a protracted first wave.
When you say well stocked, what does that mean? Is that you measure that in terms of weeks or yeah? How do you measure that?
Well, I think in general that means that we have enough supplies on hand to supply our staff and to make sure they're made safe for weeks, if not months. Okay. Depending on what item you're talking about, that will either be a little more or less than that.
And Dave, this is John Coleman. On the sanitizers, it's great we have all this material. I just want to make sure that we are not holding in stock sanitizers that the EPA just came out and said that people shouldn't have.
No,
there's like 6 or 7 brands.
So the materials we got from the EPA were masks, and those were readily distributed throughout the Bay Area. The sanitizer supplies we've either acquired on our own or were given or were distributed by Cal OES or FEMA.
But the items that we
don't have any of this. We don't have any of the sanitizers that should not be used. Then, correct?
We have the appropriate EPA approved sanitizers.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Is our
some of our
making sanitizer?
I'm sorry. 2 people spoke at once.
I think Director Mellon was asking whether we're still making sanitizer at our lab.
Yes, we are, Eileen. Just checking with Eileen. And in case that wasn't heard, the wastewater folks are producing that, but they're slowing down based on need.
Okay, thank you.
Some of our staff may need to have a N95 respirator if they're exposed to particulates from welding metal or other types of emissions that are serious enough to warrant that per safety guidance or other standards. And it occurs to me that type of mask might be required for someone who is required to be in a situation that does not allow for physical distancing to the extent that we absolutely cannot avoid that. What is our exposure to those kinds of risks above our baseline, and what kind of supply of those types of respirators do we have?
I believe the N95 masks are well in stock, and based on the employee's job function, whatever it may be, whether they would normally require that for their job as being exposed to pollen or dust or metal shavings in the machine shop, those masks are made available to staff. I'm not sure I addressed your question though.
I think that addresses just to make sure that we still have a supply for those who always needed respirators before COVID and continue to do so. Do we have information about whether it's indicated to have that type of equipment for situations where physical distancing is not possible? Is that something that we have reviewed guidance or had review of to this point?
So I'll just add quickly on the inventories. The N95 mask inventory, those supplies have been loosening up, and we have been receiving orders that were on back order for many, many months. And you might have seen the news that the state is moving forward to get more N95 masks, also in light of the fact that the wildfire season is starting up. And then as far as the requirement for N95 masks, there has been some discussion about having different types of masks be made available to the general public as well as employees in lieu of the face coverings, just to have a higher standard. That's not a requirement at this time, but we certainly are tracking those changes.
Okay, continuing.
Yeah.
So slide 5, the district's reconstitution plan is essentially our plan to return to normal whenever that occurs and whatever normal ends up looking like. And our plan, of course, is predicated on the local shelter-in-place orders as they are incrementally lifted or if they're incrementally reinstated. So the transition process is anybody's guess, but we are prepared for however long that takes, months or a prolonged period of a year, and whether or not those shelter-in-order protocols and measures either get more strict or less strict. Safety guidelines are a challenge. They're nuanced, they're complicated, they may vary by county in certain cases, and they're certainly subject to change. So it is a continuous effort for staff to stay on top of these, and we integrate these into the latest plans for the district. Construction and maintenance activities largely returned in the middle of May after sending the staff home to shelter in place. So at this point, all of our activities in the field and construction are back to normal. But with that are special guidelines that keep the staff safe that are consistent with the county order. In addition to our existing safe practices, protocols, we have additional measures imposed by the county that are embedded in the order that are depending on the size of the construction site and the number of personnel involved, may involve a third-party safety monitor or an auditor or a written plan or a contact log on site so that we can accelerate contact tracing should it come to that. So there are additional challenges with keeping construction and field maintenance staff safe that are a much bigger challenge than office workers, and those measures are all included and followed. Internal to our buildings and office workers, when we can't maintain a 6-foot safety distance, we have or are in the process of making various physical modifications to our interior buildings, such as the administrative building here and the AMC. Many of those modifications will be done by mid-July, and a lot of those involve modifications to cubicle and countertop workstations. The staff that are reporting to the main building right now, we are about 20 to 25% occupied. And many of those staff that are coming to work at the headquarters downtown, many of them who used to take mass transit are no longer doing that, and we want to make sure that we have parking for them in the building. So to make that work, luckily, we have a large amount of people still telecommuting, so we're able to balance out the people who now want to drive to the district who were formerly taking mass transit, and we've had to do that through a modified parking plan. slide 6 is showing a couple typical installations here in the administrative building. The top photograph is a typical clerk installation where you might have people visiting the clerk for various administrative matters throughout the day, so it's sort of a high traffic area. And it might be hard to see, but there's plexiglass now extending above the countertop to about 5.5 feet, 6 feet or so. And similarly, it's very difficult to maintain 6-foot separation when you have cubes oriented back to back to back in a dense environment, which is common on many of the floors in the administrative building. And here you see the plexiglass extensions being installed as well. That should be done in a few weeks. And you can see that it doesn't affect the light penetration or much of the aesthetics, but it does provide protection for workers.
Dave?
Yes.
Is that being done? Are we doing this this fabrication in-house, or are we contracting this out?
We're doing almost all of it, I think, in-house. It's relatively
Great.
easy for me to say. Okay, slide 7. Some specifics about the county's order, Alameda County's order. So I guess the first couple of months of the pandemic, Contra Costa and Alameda County were more or less in lockstep with the structure of their order, and for the most part, other Bay Area counties. But beginning earlier this month, Alameda County adopted a more conservative, more protective order in several categories, and that deviated from Contra Costa, the two primary counties that we operate here in the Bay Area. So that, of course, brings a whole myriad of challenges for us to administer. And then just to highlight some of the areas where that order is different than our neighboring counties. And the order was announced on June 5th, and it became active on yesterday, I believe, June 22nd. And so just to highlight some of these areas, in Alameda County, there's now an enhanced self-check protocol where the old self-check, so this is referring to employees that come to work prior to entering the work site. They must complete a check of symptoms that used to be 5, now it's, I think, 11. So it's a slightly more thorough self-check in Alameda County. There's also site-specific plans that are structured a little bit differently than other counties, a little bit more thorough, but by and large, they were not difficult for the district to adopt. Face coverings, of course, this was somewhat superseded by the governor's action last week on Thursday. But prior, a couple weeks earlier, Alameda County was already heading this direction, and frankly, most people were already wearing masks anyway. But it became official in Alameda County last week, on June 22nd, and then superseded by the statewide order. So face coverings are by and large required outside of specific circumstances, such as working by yourself in your office or eating. They're by and large required at all times. Construction projects, as I mentioned, have unique protocols. Obviously, when you have a plumbing crew in a trench and they're fitting up a pipe for hours at a time, that's a very challenging situation to keep people safe. So the additional measures come into play when we have that type of a work environment to make sure that the workers maintain safety when they're performing those job duties. There is some differences between Alameda County and Contra Costa County. Contra Costa defines a large construction project which implements a lot of these measures with the number of 5 in the crew. It's 20 for Alameda County, but that is really immaterial for us because in this case and in just about every other circumstance, what the district does is we always adopt the most protective protocol from either county, whatever is applicable. So in this case, we're assuming a large crew involves 5 people or more. So overall, just to recap the district's safety guidelines, right now everyone has a different experience when they come to work, and depending on where they are and even what county they're in and what their job function is. So we have a safety plan that is really catered to people here in the administration building, outside performing various job duties. It really is site and work function dependent. We've spent a great amount of effort in the last few months distributing PPE to the workforce. So that your masks, gloves, sanitizer, bottled water. I'm not aware at this point that there's any outstanding needs. I think through a lot of back and forth and a lot of effort, we've been able to achieve this, and we're not going to rest. We'll continue to make sure that these items are made available and they're pushed out to the crews that need them. I mentioned the screening checklist. It's a little bit more complicated now, but all of us here at work today did it this morning when we came in. Safety training is ongoing, and it's a constant effort, and it needs to be constant because this is a marathon, not a sprint. There are people who are getting tired of working in different manners, and it's a constant effort to reinforce the good behavior, the importance of it, and what the rules are. So this is an ongoing, this training is ongoing. In addition, unfortunately, the rules change from time to time as they evolve. So these are two really good reasons why we have put a lot of effort into training staff, and there's no plans to stop. We're working differently. We're telecommuting. We have PPE that we wear that we didn't always wear. Sometimes our interior office space looks a little bit different. We're wearing masks. A lot of our habits are different. Signage. If you come to any of our buildings, you'll see the site-specific safety plan posted outside the door, so you know what's expected of you when you walk in the building, and that goes for employees, contractors, and vendors as well. And finally, contact tracing. We've had 4 confirmed positives for COVID-19 at the district. And when we do get a positive, that triggers the contact tracing. The contact tracing that we perform is consistent with the CDC and Alameda County guidelines, and it's performed by a specific staff person in HR for a couple of reasons. One is that we want to be consistent. The protocol is complicated, and we want to make sure it's consistently applied. The second is for confidentiality, to maintain the personal information and the health information for the affected employee. When a positive is confirmed, the individual from HR interviews the employee and is looking, obviously, for the symptoms, background, underlying health issues, and who the employee came in contact with. And another extremely important piece of information that the contact tracing starts with is when did the symptoms start. At the onset of symptoms, any direct contact that confirmed positive individual has made contact with since becoming symptomatic and 48 hours prior are subject to contact tracing and quarantine if any direct contact was made between that positive individual and an individual 48 hours before becoming symptomatic and any time after. The last case the district has managed involved quarantining 5 or 6 people because of direct contact with a positive individual. So that's
how many people do we have on quarantine, Dave?
I'm sorry, how many do we have on quarantine?
Yes.
I believe it's 5 or 6. Laura says 4 right now, plus the positive. And actually, I think it ended today. So the last positive was about, I think the person was symptomatic 2 weeks ago. So that's why the quarantine ended more or less today. But yeah, 4 people were quarantined, and plus the individual who was positive.
I guess there's not really much we can do about asymptomatic people in terms of all this, right? Or are there some things that we're trying to do about that?
Yeah. So if you are asymptomatic and you've been in direct contact with somebody who is known to be positive, there is something we can do, and that's and many of the people who were all put on quarantine, all of them were asymptomatic. So in some narrow situations, we can act. We have voluntary testing right now, but other than that, if you're asymptomatic and we don't know or no one knows if the individual has it, there's not much we can do.
Yeah, I'll just add, Director Linney, to your question on the asymptomatic, and I think as Dave was sharing is, if you're asymptomatic but you were exposed within that 48-hour period per the Alameda County and CDC guidelines, those employees can either be home isolated or home quarantined, which we did with those individuals in the last case.
Right. Those are ones that are exposed at work in some way, right? But others that are exposed but don't know whether they were exposed or, asymptomatic. Are we encouraging, what are we doing to encourage testing? Anything?
We continue to share with staff all the testing sites they can go to, and the other most important thing is to continue to reinforce the need to wear face coverings at work. That the main mode of catching it is respiratory, and that's why we are really making a point to emphasize and make sure that we have the PPE available for people to have face coverings.
And I would just add, Director Laney, that many of our operators at the treatment plants, and probably wastewater too, Eileen is nodding, are regularly getting tested, and luckily there's plenty of sites made available to do that.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, I don't have questions. I just want the other board members to be aware. Clifford has been well aware in his new role. I've had a number of emails of people contacting me regarding the Lafayette Reservoir and people not walking around with masks on.
Yeah.
And the question on how do you have a one-way circle around the reservoir, but not everybody walks around the reservoir all the way. I appreciate the new signs that went up to tell people to wear a mask. But I'm also concerned that as the number of cases continues to increase in both counties, that what the implications may be. And I had a Facebook post when EBMUD put out saying to wear a mask. I shared it and said, your facilities, you need to wear a mask. If you don't, and the situation gets worse, we may be, and unfortunately, we may need to have to close our facilities. That's something that nobody wants to do. But I'm getting a fair number of inquiries about this, and I know Clifford's working with staff to figure out how to make it work. But I wanted the other board members to know this is an issue out there. And I also had a call from Bob, maybe Lisa, you did too, up at Comanche last week, about how people are just blatantly not following the guidelines that have been established by the state. And I'm hoping, and maybe legal can look at this, I don't want our facilities to be open where, I want them to be open and people use the facilities the right way, in the proper way. But if our facilities are open and people are blatantly disregarding the rules, and somebody does get COVID-19 and it can be traced back to our facility where they got it, are we liable at all? I don't know. Frank. Trump had his people sign liability forms in Tulsa, and but not that it
He invited them into the room.
Right, but I just want to make sure that we're not, we're a deep pocket.
Sure.
And people look at, and we're a litigious society, and people look at us in a way going, hey, maybe there's a quick way to make $20,000. I got it, and I can say I got it from so-and-so because I was walking on the trail of Lafayette Reservoir and somebody was sneezing, didn't have a mask on. Now that means they didn't have a mask either, I guess, if they got it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I appreciate this. We need to be aggressive. And Clifford, I know, is working with staff to try and figure out a way to be aggressive so that we don't have people who, if people have a complaint, they can complain. That's their right. But we should try to minimize the number of complaints in a way that makes it work for the facility to be open at the same time as protecting our users of our facilities.
Yeah, I also had complaints from, I've had complaints about use at Lafayette and the lack of masking there. And so Clifford, could you just report on the things that we are doing to try to reduce exposure of the one-way idea, limiting the number of people that can be at the facility at any given time, things of that sort?
I can provide you an update maybe at the next board meeting, but as far as what we're doing right now at Lafayette Reservoir, staff did take a look at the idea of either one way around the reservoir or maybe part of the trail is two ways and part of it's one way. At this point in time, we do have a lot of signage up, and what staff is reporting, they're not seeing a lot of complaints and although most of the people at Lafayette Reservoir have not been wearing the mask all the time, what they are reporting back is when they do get within 6 feet, they are putting on their masks and observing the rule that if you can't maintain 6 foot distancing. But we're going to continue to monitor the situation, and we may have to adjust if things do get worse.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
The thing I'm running into is the characters that are saying, I'm tired of Big Brother. And they're pretty darn aggressive. I find it very unsettling. I mean, this is, I don't know if you can see it, this is what I look like when I go out.
That's darn scary, Frank.
I'm glad you don't go to a bank like that.
But like a serial killer.
My point is, I do that all the time, and yet there are people that are just, what's the matter with you? All of this is nonsense. You don't need to wear a mask, and so on and so on and so on. And it's like, man, why are you unclear on the concept? So,
Well, it's become political.
Yeah.
Well, I know I mentioned to Cliff yesterday that maybe we can put flyers on the cars periodically that park at the Lafayette Reservoir, saying you should be required, if you're not, when you come within 6 feet, you need to put it on. If you don't, and the situation gets worse in the county, we may be forced to close the reservoir. We got 9,000 people there last Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
And so that may resonate with people who become self-policing with those who don't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clifford, is Miller Road now open at the end of Redwood Road?
It is.
I'll have to go out there and do a hike and see what's happening, John, and report back to you guys, because that's where the dam is, Upper San Leandro Dam. And I've been, staying out of there because the gate was across. So I'll give a report back by next time.
Thank you. I just have, if there are no other questions on COVID-19, I just have one more item. The updated Speakers Bureau was emailed to all the board members, and I do want to draw your attention to the Oakland Chamber of Commerce's annual meeting and awards. It's a conversation on equity and inclusion that's going to be held on June 30th. And if any board members are interested in attending, please contact the Secretary's office by June 25th.
Which is day after tomorrow. And is that a luncheon? I haven't had a chance to look at my speakers.
It's
is that like a lunchtime thing, or I know it's virtual, but is it?
Bring your own lunch, but they're calling it a brunch, and it runs from 10 a.m. to 11:15 a.m.
Okay. All right. Okay. We're on to committee reports, I believe. The Finance Committee met this morning. Bill, do you have a report from Finance?
Oh, there. We may have to come back to him.
Maybe you're on mute, or maybe frozen, it looks like. Bill, are you there?
Yeah.
We need a Finance Committee report.
Oh, okay. The Finance Committee met this morning. There were several items on the agenda. Item 1, it was the development. It was the monthly investment transactions report. Received and accepted. Annual update on employees' retirement system. There was a presentation on that. We got a wise interpreted that we're going to go back and have a second look at later in the season. Then we had revised district policies. And that report was received with one amendment by Andy, and it was on your on the agenda earlier today. That item has been concluded. That's your report.
Okay. Are there any, if folks have items for future consideration, please submit them to our general manager. Moving on to director comments. Anyone have anything to add? Frank?
I just wanted to say that the ad hoc committee meeting was extraordinary. And, regardless the point of view that you look at it from as a HR background type person, that we were so inclusive was gratifying. And I really want to commend, again, everybody for what they did. And the hard work is about to begin. But thank you, everyone. And you know what I especially appreciated was there was nobody was in any way denied an opportunity to say what they needed to say. And that's the way that kind of committee should be. So thank you to everyone that did that. And again, the kudos out to Derry and Saji.
I'd like to piggyback on the back of Frank and just say two other important things happened over this brief departure from board meeting. One was Father's Day. As we look at the conditions across the country and the way people are coming together and whatnot, we're losing a lot of people, some to COVID and some to just natural occurrences. I think that's another item that we're going to take up next with respect to the district. But what I was most impressed by among the salutations, greetings, telephone calls, and whatnot from a lot of young men and women who grew up under Dell and I, and their offerings of today, they credit back to their childhood experiences with us. And they wrote several nice pieces that we were pleased to receive. Of course, Dell doesn't really interpret any of this, but I get fun reading it to her and seeing the expressions on her face. But the many young men, you know about some of the outstanding ones, all of them were outstanding in my opinion, but those who didn't go on the highlights of sports and other endeavors had just a good family relationship. And many of them credit that to their early upbringing and exposure under me. I kept sending them back. I employed them in the recreation department, and how I got them off to a good start in college. And they were able to profit by that and really provide for their families. So I just wanted to share that because Father's Day comes every year, and it's good to have some return and some recognition from all of the people out there that we've touched, just to have some of them give back and say that kind of thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any other board members have comments? Okay, we are gonna, Clifford, you just about made it through your very first meeting as general manager. Good work. Many more to come. We are going to close today's meeting apropos to some of Bill's comments in honor of those whose EBMUD employees whose lives were ended, lost this year. And so we will close with a scrolling of their names and in silence, please. Thank you all.
And President Young, while we're starting that presentation, I just wanted to acknowledge that Janetta was actually clerking the meeting today. So it wasn't me. I'm just sitting in the background, but it's actually Janetta who was clerking the meeting, and so that's who you were speaking to.
Janetta, good job.
Yeah, so that was Janetta.
And also, we'll convene our next meeting on July 9th. Is that correct?
14th.
14th, sorry.
You have to hit share. Go back.
Yeah, it won't put the red.
Click it. Click it. And do your Control L.
Can you guys see that?
We see the initial slide, but not.
Did it change for you?
No.
Try it again.
No.
Go. There we go. Oh my God.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you July 14th.
Thank you, Marguerite.
Thank you.
And thank you, Risha.
Thank you, Rita and Janetta.
Thank you, everyone.
You bet.